It's been almost a year since I finished the Dark Tower series by Stephen King, and I haven't stopped thinking about it. It was one of the best series that I've ever read in my life. This video is just to tell you guys how awesome this series is without getting into big spoilers, because I really think that it's Stephen King's best work from what I've read. I haven't read all of Stephen King's work, but the Dark Tower series was just epic. I can't stop thinking of the world building that King did throughout that series. It's one of the most epic tales that I've ever read in literature, in modern literature. I mean, it's truly one of the best series ever made. And Roland Deschain, the main protagonist, he is this gunslinger slash prophet slash guy, this cowboy who's also like part magician, who is on his quest for the Dark Tower. The Dark Tower is the center of all of our universes. Like you have this universe, the multiverse, basically before Marvel went with the multiverse, it was in the Dark Tower. And he's on this epic quest following the Man in Black, one of the few villains that you'll encounter throughout the series. And from the first book, which was released, I believe it was 1982. So this book series spans decades. King finished it, started in 1982, but the series ended in 2004 and with book 7. And I tell you, when I tell you that these characters are so lovable, the story was epic. I truly mean that. You know, I think Lord of the Rings is an epic series. So I know epic series and tales and authors. And Stephen King's Dark Tower series is considered his magnum opus, and some of his works are in the Dark Tower series. Now, don't go looking for the Dark Tower series because you want to see Stephen King's other works in there. They're in the series, but not at the extent to which you think it is. They make their entrances in there, but do not read the series for the Easter eggs. Read the series because you love Roland and the gang, his gang of quartet. Roland, on the search for this tower, encounters a few other friends along the way. You have Eddie Dean, you have Jake Chambers, and you have Susanna Holmes. And these characters you end up falling in love with. And of course, the bumbler character, Oi, who's very similar to a dog. He becomes a companion as well. These characters are so lovable. They come from different decades, which is pretty fascinating. You have Jake's from the 70s, Susanna, I believe, was from the 60s, and Eddie's from the 80s. So what's cool, even though Jake, for example, is younger than Eddie, Eddie comes from a later decade than Jake. So there's these cross references of different cultures that they come from, which is pretty cool. You'll love these characters as much as I did, or I still do. I definitely plan on rereading this series. The Dark Tower has strong elements of fantasy, Western, sci fi, and horror. So it's pretty cool to go into a series that has all the genres mixed together. And the vast world building that Stephen King did is just out of this world. He really, I mean, I think he was under the influence of drugs on a lot of these books during the 80s was when he was the heaviest in his drug extent, drug and alcohol. So the series sometimes does feel like one giant, what I would imagine to be an acid trip, but it's beautiful at the same time. It's a little all over the place, but in a beautiful way. One of the gifts of Stephen King is how he can narrate a story while keeping you entertained. I mean, these books are, I mean, some books are thicker than others in this series, but even if it was a super thick book, you know, it's going to still be entertaining. He's good at keeping you entertained. So, um, I think you should definitely give this series a chance if you love those genres that I'm talking about, especially if you love Stephen King. I want to read this series again. I plan on reading this series again, but there's so many other books and series that I haven't read that I want to finish in my lifetime before, you know, my time is up on this earth, like many of you. Um, I can't recommend this series enough. Like Roland Deschain might be one of the best protagonists of all time. And what I like about Roland is not only is he super tough and he's in the last line. He comes from the last line of gunslingers of his kind, but his wisdom is like nearly infinite. He's like a wizard, even though he's a gunslinger, and he's very likable. He's very brave, and he's one of the best protagonists of all time. He's up in a category with someone like Bilbo and Frodo Baggins. I mean, he's up near that category, and I think that Bilbo is one of the best protagonists of all time, and Frodo and Sherlock Holmes. I think those characters are about as epic as it gets in terms of fiction. You need to read the Dark Tower series if you like fantasy, if you like Stephen King, if you like the Western genre, if you like the idea of this mythical world called Midworld, without getting into spoilers, Midworld, where Roland comes from, getting intertwined with the likes of our world and they becoming mixed together and being at stake because of the events happening in the Dark Tower. And you want to go with Roland and Eddie and Jake and Susanna on this quest to get to the Dark Tower to prevent these terrible things from happening in our world and in Roland's world, then you will love this book. I also like how there's elements of the pulp culture in each book is different because it took King 40 years nearly to write this series. So there's things happening in the first book in terms of the 80s that is mentioned, and then the late 80s, the technological advancements. There's some things mentioned in those novels, and then the 90s, of course, the internet's mentioned. So this, all these decades it took King to write the story, there's all these technological advancements that happened in that 40-year span, and it's mentioned in the books. I love that. I absolutely love that. I love the pulp culture references in the books from the 50s, 60s, 70s through the 80s up into the 90s, even through the early 2000s, because the book was finished in the mid 2000s, around 2004. So all of these elements are in the series as well. And I just think it's fascinating. Like I said, I love how Eddie's from the 80s. He's probably in his 30s. Jake's like a boy, your typical kid. He's in the 70s. He's from the 70s. And Susanna, she is a young woman from the 60s. And so even though they're in different age groups, you know, some have more wisdom in terms of others because of the decade in which they came from. And I just think that that's awesome. If you're looking for a series that you're going to fall in love with the characters, you're going to want to read the Dark Tower series. Now, all 7 books are different from each other. Book 4, people tend to love or hate. That's called Wizard and Glass. This is Roland's backstory. Roland goes into basically a campfire setting, a palaver. You're going to hear that word throughout the book. A palaver is where they sit and chat and tell stories. He tells the stories of the events leading up to where he is now at that time in that book. Wizard of Glass is a backstory of Roland. People either loved that one or hated it. I really liked it. It doesn't have to do necessarily with the linear story. Like I said, it's a backstory. Um, you don't know Susanna's identity more until book 2. Of course, book 7 was the last book. I liked all the books. They were all special in their own way, but I guess the least favorite of the series for me was book 6, which is the Song of Susanna. I did not like that one compared to the other ones. I liked Wolves of the Kala, which was book 5, Wizard and Glass, book 4, the first 3, The Wastelands, all of them are great. But I would say book 6 of the 7 is my least favorite. Book 7, of course, being epic because it resulting in the ending to the series, giving you the answer that you've always looked for or hoped for that you would get in a series. It's the concluding of the whole story. So I don't know. Book 1 was epic. It's more of the westernish, the man with no name type of western up against the villain. That's the vibes you get from the first book. By the time you get to book 7, you're in this world building and the fate of humanity and character building and side quests. You end up meeting so many. This world is so vast that you end up meeting so many different people in this series, villains, side quests that end up coming back. So you might see a character in book 2 and they'll come back in book 4 or 5. So even though you think you're done with the character in a certain book in this series, you'll end up running back into that character, which is kind of cool. There's definitely Easter eggs of Stephen King's other works in this series, which is also awesome. I love that. References to The Stand, to Salem's Lot, to It, right off the top of my head, which is awesome. This series, after I read this series, I immediately read Salem's Lot because one of the main characters from Salem's Lot is in the Dark Tower. And I knew that going in. So you're in for a lot of treats for the world building there, but I really love these characters. This gang, this quartet, they're all drawn together because they have a destiny. Like Roland, Eddie, Jake, and Susanna, they were all brought together for a reason. And in this sharing of Ka, which is destiny, fate, they are linked together to get to this dark tower. And I hated, as I got near the end of the book, I didn't want the story to end. I mean, there's parts of you that wanted to end to get closure. But by the time I started to get to the end, I was like, yeah, I'm going to hate this. Like, I don't want this to end. I've read this book for so many months and now it's going to end finally. So, which, like I said, there's been 2 other books since then that weren't a part of the original 7 books. There's 2 not novellas that I plan on getting to, but they're not of the original 7. And I wanted to finish the original 7 the way it was originally published and released. So if you're looking for an epic journey in the world of Stephen King, when people think of Stephen King, they think of horror, but this just isn't about horror. This is fantasy on a whole nother level and an epic level. Stephen King really knew it, and I love westerns. So you have fantasy and westerns and sci-fi all linked together here. They're epic with some horror elements. I love the idea of mixing different genres together to create this epic story. And epic is what it is. It's in the category of like Lord of the Rings. I think Lord of the Rings is the most epic trilogy of all time. This series is epic in its own way. It's up there with Tolkien. I mean, C.S. Lewis. I mean, Stephen King himself considers this his magnum opus. So, and if you're already a fan of Stephen King, then you're going to love this series. You are going to chase this series, and you will cherish it. If you love fantasy, and like I said, no matter how thick the book is from Stephen King, he makes it entertaining where the pages just keep flowing. That's his gift. You know, you have to be really talented and gifted to be able to do such things. And Stephen King has that ability and that talent. I hope that this video gets you excited to read this series. That was the intent of this video, without getting into big spoilers, is to tell you to get out and read the Dark Tower series. You'll love the characters. You'll love the pulp culture references. You'll love the sci-fi and the fantasy, the sci-fi/fantasy elements of it. You'll love the Easter eggs, and you will I think you'll be better after you read the series. I think it's just, I felt like it was something that I needed by the time I finished the tale. And I'm curious to know your thoughts. Have you read the Dark Tower series? Let me know in the comments what you thought. I really hope you guys consider it. I didn't want to get into big spoilers. I just wanted to be convincing enough to get you to read the series. And let me know in the comments what you thought of the series if you did read the series. And if you did read the series, let me know in the comments what your favorite book was in the series. That's a tough one for me. I guess I really liked I liked book 2. I think it was the drawing of the 3. And I liked book 4. And I liked the final book, and I liked Wolves of the Kala. So I guess I would say I liked book 2, Drawing of the 3, book 4, Wizard and Glass, book 5, Wolves of the Kala, and book 7, The Dark Tower. That would be my favorite ones off the top of my head. But let me know in the comments your favorite of this series if you've read it. If you haven't read the Dark Tower series yet, please check it out at your local library if you can't afford it. I tend to check books out at the library to save me book space, and it's cheaper. And that way I can read as many books as I want and just keep hitting that checklist, reading all these amazing novels by all these amazing authors, and just have all this infinite access to all these books. Libraries are so awesome and special for a reason. But Feel free also to order these books if you think you're going to like them. I think you will if you really like fantasy and you really like Stephen King and you really like sci-fi. I think this would be right up your alley. But to be safe, you want to save some money, go check it out at your local library. But I think I'm done here. I just wanted to make this video to get you guys to go out and read the series. And basically, I can't stop thinking about it. So I'm like, I might as well make a video about it and tell other people to read it because it's so freaking awesome. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the Dark Tower series. If you made it this far, please feel free to subscribe to my channel where I plan on doing more book reviews, movie reviews, TV show reviews, pop culture talk, and just rambling in general. Please feel free to subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Remember to check out the Dark Tower series. All right. Have a good one, guys.